The sun was setting over the small Texas border town, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. David Chen sat on his back porch, a cold beer in hand, watching the day fade away. This was his routine now. Quiet evenings, peaceful nights, and absolutely nothing like the life he'd left behind 3 years ago. For 12 years, David had been someone else entirely. He'd been a sniper in the Army Special Forces, one of the best marksmen in his unit. 2 tours in Afghanistan, countless missions he couldn't talk about, and a skill set most people only saw in movies. He could hit a target from distances that seemed impossible. He could stay perfectly still for hours waiting for the right moment. He knew how to read the wind, calculate bullet drop, and make shots that other soldiers couldn't even attempt. But that life was done now. At 38 years old, David had traded his military uniform for jeans and work boots. He'd bought this small ranch house on the outskirts of Laredo with his retirement savings. Nothing fancy. Just a simple 3-bedroom place with a decent-sized yard and a garage he'd converted into a workshop. The house sat on the end of a quiet street, with empty land stretching out behind it toward the border miles away. His neighbors thought of him as the helpful guy who didn't talk much. Old Mrs. Rodriguez, 2 houses down, called him whenever she needed help moving furniture. The young couple across the street asked him to watch their place when they went on vacation. To them, he was just David, the polite veteran who kept his lawn neat and always waved hello. What they didn't know was that David still went to a private shooting range 3 times a week. His hands still remembered every movement, every adjustment, every breath control technique he'd learned over more than a decade of training. Muscle memory didn't just disappear because you retired. Some skills became part of who you were. They also didn't know what was locked in the gun safe in his bedroom closet. A custom Remington 700 rifle with a high-powered scope, a Glock 19 pistol he could field strip blindfolded, a suppressor he'd legally registered, ammunition stored properly in climate-controlled conditions, night vision equipment, body armor, everything maintained, everything ready, even though he told himself he'd never need any of it again. David worked as a security consultant now, which was a fancy way of saying he helped businesses figure out their weak points. He'd walk through warehouses and office buildings, pointing out where someone could break in, where cameras needed to be installed, how to improve their systems. It paid well enough, and it kept his mind sharp without the stress of actual combat. The divorce had been finalized 8 months ago. His ex-wife Jennifer didn't hate him, and he didn't hate her. They'd just grown apart. 12 years of deployments, of him being gone more than he was home, of her raising their daughter Amy mostly on her own. It wasn't sustainable. They'd tried for a few years after he retired, but the damage was already done. Now Jennifer and Amy lived in San Antonio, about 2 hours away. He got Amy every other weekend, and they had a good relationship. She was 10 years old, smart as a whip, and loved showing him her school projects. This particular weekend, Amy was with her mom at some family wedding in Houston. David had the house to himself, which meant he could do whatever he wanted. Watch whatever he felt like on TV. Eat cereal for dinner if he chose to. Stay up late working in his garage. Freedom, in its own quiet way. He'd spent the day doing maintenance around the property. Fixed a section of fence that had come loose. Changed the oil in his truck. Cleaned his gutters. Normal homeowner stuff that somehow felt satisfying in a way combat missions never had. There was something peaceful about problems you could actually solve with your hands. As darkness settled in, David went inside and made himself dinner. Nothing complicated, just a steak on the grill and some vegetables. He ate while watching the news, which was mostly talking about border security and cartel activity in the area. Laredo sat right on the edge of everything. Just across the Rio Grande was Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, and that city was basically run by drug cartels. Violence spilled over sometimes, but usually it stayed on the other side. The local sheriff had been on TV a few weeks back, talking about how they'd arrested some cartel members trying to move product through the area. David remembered thinking that arresting low-level guys never changed anything. The cartels had unlimited money and unlimited people willing to work for them. Cut off one head, 2 more grew back. It was a game nobody was winning. After dinner, David spent some time in his garage workshop. He was building a coffee table from reclaimed wood, taking his time with it, making sure every joint was perfect. Working with his hands helped quiet his mind. In the military, there was always noise. Radios crackling, helicopters overhead, other soldiers talking. Out here, he could have silence when he wanted it. Around 11, he headed inside, locked up the house, and got ready for bed. This was another part of his routine that hadn't changed from his military days. He checked every door, every window, made sure his security system was armed, put his phone on the nightstand where he could reach it. His pistol went in the nightstand drawer, loaded but with the safety on. Some habits never died, no matter how safe you felt. His bedroom had something most people wouldn't notice. A small monitor on his dresser connected to security cameras he'd installed around the property. Nothing paranoid, just 4 cameras covering the front door, back door, driveway, and the area behind his house. David told himself it was normal security stuff, the kind of thing anyone living near the border should have. Deep down, he knew it was his training that wouldn't let him be truly unprepared. He'd also set up his house in ways that made tactical sense, though he tried not to think about it too much. His bedroom was upstairs with a clear view of the staircase. The hallway created what military folks called a fatal funnel, a narrow space where anyone coming up would be exposed. Not that he expected to ever use that advantage. It was just how his brain worked now. David climbed into bed and scrolled through his phone for a while. Amy had sent him a video of her doing a cartwheel at the wedding reception. He smiled watching it, sent back a message telling her that was amazing, then set his phone down. The house was quiet. Outside, he could hear crickets and the occasional car passing on the main road a few blocks away. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. The kind of peaceful Friday night that made him grateful he'd survived long enough to enjoy retirement. He had no idea that in a few hours, everything would change. He had no idea that 4 men were already in town, checking addresses and loading weapons. He had no idea that a simple mistake, a wrong house number, was about to turn his quiet retirement into the fight of his life. David closed his eyes and drifted toward sleep, completely unaware that his past was about to collide with his present in the most violent way possible. David's eyes snapped open. Something was wrong. Years of training had wired his brain differently than most people. Even in deep sleep, part of him stayed alert, listening, sensing. Right now, that part was screaming at him to wake up. He lay perfectly still, controlling his breathing, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The clock on his nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m. The house was quiet, but it was the wrong kind of quiet. Something had changed in the air, in the feeling of the space around him. Then he heard it, a soft creak from downstairs, not the normal settling sounds of an old house. This was different. This was weight on floorboards, movement. David's heart rate increased, but his training kicked in immediately. No panic, just focus. He slowly reached for his phone on the nightstand, keeping his movements minimal. The screen lit up, showing his security camera feeds. His blood went cold. 4 men were in his kitchen. 4 men dressed in dark tactical gear, wearing gloves, faces partially covered with bandanas, and they were armed. He could see rifles, the distinctive shape of AR-15s, held in a way that showed these guys knew how to use them. This wasn't some random break-in by desperate addicts looking for things to steal. David's mind raced through possibilities in seconds. He lived at the end of the street. His neighbor 2 houses down, Robert Martinez, had been in the news lately. Word around town was that Robert had cooperated with federal agents in some kind of investigation. David had never asked details, never wanted to know. But now, watching these armed men move through his house with military precision, he understood exactly what was happening. They'd come to the wrong address. The cartels didn't forgive informants. Everyone near the border knew that. And when they came for someone, they came heavy and they came ready. These 4 men were an execution squad, and they thought they were in Robert Martinez's house. David watched the camera feed as the men communicated with hand signals. They were clearing rooms, moving as a team. These weren't amateurs. Someone had trained them, probably former Mexican military who'd gone to work for the cartels. The money was better and morality didn't enter into it. He had maybe 2 minutes before they came upstairs. David's options flashed through his mind. He could try to hide, but where? Under the bed like a child? In the closet? They'd find him in seconds. He could try to escape through his bedroom window, but it was a 15-foot drop and they'd hear him for sure. He could try to surrender, explain the mistake, but he knew how that would end. Once they realized their error, they'd kill him anyway to avoid witnesses. That left one option. Moving with absolute silence, David rolled out of bed. He went straight to his closet, opening the gun safe with practice speed. His hands found the Remington 700 rifle first. He'd maintained this weapon religiously for 3 years, even though he'd told himself he'd never need it. The suppressor was in its case beside it. He attached it with smooth, automatic movements, his hands remembering every step. He loaded the rifle with 5 rounds, enough to make a difference. Then he grabbed his Glock from the nightstand, checked the magazine, chambered around. 2 weapons, multiple angles of attack. He was outgunned 4-1, but he had something they didn't. He knew this house like he knew his own heartbeat. David had spent 3 years living here, and his tactical brain had never stopped analyzing it. He knew which floorboards creaked and which ones didn't. He knew the sight lines from every room. He knew that his bedroom sat at the top of the stairs with a perfect view down the hallway. Anyone coming up those stairs would be silhouetted against the light from downstairs. They'd be climbing off balance, exposed. It was what soldiers called a fatal funnel, a kill zone. He heard Spanish being spoken downstairs now, low voices, confident. They thought this was going to be easy. Wake up the target, do what they came to do, disappear into the night. Just another message sent by the cartel, just another name crossed off a list. David positioned himself at the corner of his bedroom doorway. The angle gave him cover while allowing him to see the top of the staircase. He went down on one knee, bringing the rifle up to his shoulder. The scope wasn't necessary at this distance, but the weapon felt right in his hands, familiar, like seeing an old friend. His phone was in his pocket. Moving carefully, he pulled it out and sent a text to 911. Simple and direct. Armed intruders. 4 men with rifles. 1247 Mesquite Drive. Officer needs help. He put the phone on silent and set it down. Help would come, but not fast enough. The sheriff's department was 20 minutes away on a good night. He was on his own. Below him, he heard footsteps on the stairs. David's breathing slowed. His heart rate dropped. This was the thing that had made him exceptional at his job. While other soldiers got more amped up in combat, David got calmer, more focused. Everything else fell away except the shot, the target, the mission. The first man appeared at the top of the stairs. He was moving carefully, rifle up, checking corners, professional, dangerous, but he made one critical mistake. He assumed the house was like Robert Martinez's house 2 doors down. He assumed the layout would be the same with the master bedroom to the left. So he turned left, sweeping his rifle across the empty guest bedroom doorway. David didn't hesitate. The suppressed rifle made a sound like a hard cough, not silent like in movies, but quiet enough. The round hit the man's center mass, dropping him instantly. He fell backward into the hallway without making a sound beyond the thump of his body hitting the floor. For about 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then everything erupted. The men downstairs started shouting in Spanish. David caught fragments. "He's down. Contact upstairs. Go, go, go!" They'd thought this was an easy job, and suddenly it wasn't. Someone was shooting back, and someone was good at it. The second man came up the stairs fast, firing blindly toward where he thought the shot had come from. Rounds punched through the drywall, but David had already anticipated this. He'd moved the moment he took his first shot, repositioning to a different angle. The muzzle flashes from the man's rifle lit up the darkness, showing David exactly where he was. Another critical mistake. In close quarters darkness, firing gave away your position. David put 2 rounds through the railing, angling down. The second man fell forward, his rifle clattering down the stairs, 2 down. 2 to go, but now they knew what they were facing. Someone who knew what they were doing. Someone who was turning their ambush into a nightmare. David heard them regrouping downstairs, speaking rapidly. They were making a decision. Keep pushing forward or pull back. These next few seconds would determine everything. He stayed absolutely still, rifle ready, controlling his breathing, waiting. In combat, patience was often the difference between living and dying. Then he heard movement below, not on the stairs. Different sounds. They were splitting up, trying to flank him. One heading toward the back of the house, maybe trying to find another way up or draw his attention. Smart. If they'd both rush the stairs, they'd both die. David set down the rifle and drew his Glock. The engagement was about to get closer, faster, more chaotic. The rifle was perfect for the stairway, but he needed something more maneuverable now. He heard the sound of someone trying to force open the window in his home office. They were coming in through multiple points. These guys weren't giving up. They'd committed to this, and backing down meant going back to their bosses and explaining how a job went wrong. In the cartel world, that kind of failure could get you killed too. David moved toward the office doorway, staying low, using the darkness and his knowledge of the space. His heart was steady now. His mind was clear. This was what he'd been trained for during thousands of hours of drills and real combat situations. The window in the office slid open. A shadow appeared, pulling himself through. David waited until the man was halfway through the window, unbalanced and vulnerable. Then he moved. The third man was halfway through the window when David fired 3 rounds in rapid succession. The man fell back outside, disappearing into the darkness of the yard. David didn't wait to confirm. He was already moving, already thinking 3 steps ahead. 1 left. Maybe. The house had gone quiet again, but this was a different kind of quiet. The quiet of 2 predators circling each other, both knowing the other was dangerous. David pressed himself against the wall of the hallway, listening. His ears were ringing slightly from the gunfire in the enclosed space. But he could still hear well enough. Footsteps downstairs, fast, moving toward the back door. The last man was running. David's tactical brain processed this instantly. The guy had watched 3 of his teammates go down in less than 5 minutes. He'd realized this wasn't the easy hit they'd expected. This was a death trap, and staying meant probably dying. Better to escape, regroup, come back with more people, or just cut losses entirely. David moved to the top of the stairs, Glock raised, covering the angle. He could see the back door from here, could see the man in tactical gear sprinting toward it. Part of him wanted to let the guy go, let him run, let this be over. But another part of him, the part trained by 12 years in special forces, knew that was a mistake. That man would go back to the cartel. He'd report what happened. He'd tell them about the resistance, about the bodies, about the fact that someone in this house knew how to fight back. And then they'd come again. Maybe not tonight or tomorrow, but eventually, with more men, with more weapons, and they'd be ready for him. David made a split-second decision. He aimed and fired twice. The man stumbled at the doorway but kept moving, disappearing into the night. David had hit him, but not fatally. The man was wounded but mobile. For a moment, David stood there in the darkness of his hallway, gun still raised, breathing controlled but heavy. His home, his peaceful retirement sanctuary, was now a crime scene. There were bodies. There was blood. There were bullet holes in his walls, and it wasn't over yet. David moved quickly but carefully down the stairs, checking every corner, every shadow. The first man still lay at the top of the stairwell. The second was crumpled halfway down. He moved past them, weapon ready, clearing each room like he'd done 1,000 times in training and combat. The house was empty now except for him and the fallen. He went to the back door and looked out into his yard. The wounded man was gone, probably running through the empty land behind his property toward wherever they'd parked their vehicle. David thought about pursuing but dismissed it immediately. Chasing someone through darkness into unknown terrain was how you got killed. Let him go. Let him bleed. Let him tell his story. David closed and locked the back door, then moved through the house systematically. He checked the window where the third man had tried to enter. The body was outside in his bushes, not moving. He didn't go out to check closer. That was for the police to handle. He went back upstairs and retrieved his rifle, then returned to the living room. He turned on a single lamp, keeping the rest of the house dark, and sat down on his couch where he could see both the front and back doors. His weapons were within reach but not in his hands. He needed to look non-threatening when the police arrived, even though his home looked like a war zone. His phone showed multiple missed calls from 911 dispatch. He called back. "This is David Chen at 1247 Mesquite Drive. I texted earlier about armed intruders. The situation is under control now, but I need police and probably EMTs. There are casualties." The dispatcher's voice was professional but urgent. "Are you injured, sir?" "No, I'm not injured." "Are the intruders still in your home?" "2 are down inside. 1 is outside my office window. 1 fled on foot, wounded, heading east into the empty land behind my property." There was a pause. David could almost hear the dispatcher processing this information, trying to understand what had happened. "Sir, are you saying you defended yourself against 4 armed intruders?" "Yes, ma'am. They came in through my back door around 2:50 a.m. They were armed with rifles. I defended myself in my own home. Units are already en route. Should be there in about 10 minutes. Stay on the line with me. Are you in a safe location right now? I'm in my living room. I have eyes on all entry points. I'm armed but not a threat to responding officers. I'll comply with whatever they need when they arrive. What are you wearing, sir? Gray t-shirt and black pajama pants. I'm sitting on my couch. When officers arrive, I'll set my weapons down and keep my hands visible. David could hear sirens now in the distance getting closer. The next few hours were going to be complicated. He knew that. Police would have questions. Lots of questions. There would be investigations, reports, probably federal agents once they identified who these men were working for. But he was alive. And he'd defended his home. In Texas, that meant something. The sirens got louder. Red and blue lights began flashing through his front windows. David stood slowly, set his Glock on the coffee table, placed his rifle on the floor, and raised his hands where they could be seen through the window. Officers are here, he told the dispatcher. I'm setting down my phone and keeping my hands visible. Stay calm and follow their instructions, Mr. Chen. The next few minutes were tense. Police surrounded his house, shouting commands through a megaphone. David walked out his front door slowly, hands up, and followed every instruction perfectly. He got down on his knees, then lay flat on his lawn. Officers approached with weapons drawn, cuffed him, searched him, and secured him in the back of a patrol car. He didn't resist. Didn't argue. Just complied. Sheriff Mike Williams arrived 15 minutes later. He was a veteran himself, former Marine, and he knew David slightly from around town. Williams went into the house, spent about 20 minutes inside, then came out to the patrol car where David sat. You all right? Williams asked, opening the door. Yes, sir. Hell of a thing. You know who these guys were? I have a theory. You might want to check on Robert Martinez, 2 houses down. I think they had the wrong address. Williams nodded slowly. Yeah, we already thought of that. Got units heading to his place now. You know what you did here tonight, right? You took out a cartel hit squad. By yourself. I defended my home, Sheriff. They broke in. They were armed. I had no choice. I know that. And the law knows that. Castle doctrine is pretty clear in Texas. But this is going to get complicated. These aren't just criminals. This is cartel. That means federal jurisdiction, FBI, probably DEA. You're going to have a long night ahead of you with questions. I understand. Williams looked at him for a long moment. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Army Special Forces. 12 years. That explains it. Come on, let's get those cuffs off. You're not under arrest. You're a witness and a victim. But we need you to come down to the station. Give a statement, walk us through everything that happened. They removed the cuffs. David's wrists were sore, but he didn't mention it. He stood on his lawn watching as EMTs and crime scene investigators moved in and out of his house. His quiet retirement home was now a crime scene with yellow tape and dozens of officials documenting everything. A forensics photographer was taking pictures of bullet holes in his walls. Evidence markers were being placed throughout the house. Someone was measuring distances and angles. David felt strangely calm. He'd done what he needed to do. He'd survived. But he also knew his life had just changed forever. You don't kill 3 cartel members and walk away like nothing happened. They'd want revenge. They'd want to save face. Word would spread about what happened here tonight, and somewhere in Mexico someone was going to be very angry. The interrogation room at the sheriff's department was exactly what David expected. Gray walls, a metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a camera recording everything. He'd been here for 3 hours now, answering the same questions from different people in different ways. Local police had gone first, then county detectives. Now he was sitting across from 2 federal agents who'd driven down from San Antonio the moment they heard what happened. Agent Torres from the FBI and Agent Klein from the DEA. Both looked tired, but their eyes were sharp and focused. Let's go through it one more time, Torres said, leaning forward. You woke up at what time? Around 2:47, something woke me. Training, I guess. I just knew something was wrong. And you immediately went for your weapons? I checked my security cameras first. Saw 4 armed men in my kitchen. Then yes, I went for my weapons. What would you have done? Torres didn't answer that. Klein jumped in. You keep a pretty serious arsenal for a retired soldier. Suppressed sniper rifle, multiple handguns, night vision equipment, all legal, all registered properly. I was Special Forces for 12 years. Those skills don't just disappear because I retired. Nobody's saying you did anything illegal, Torres clarified. We're just trying to understand the situation. These men you killed, we've identified them. Miguel Vega, Carlos Ruiz, and Antonio Herrera, all known members of the Gulf Cartel Enforcement Division. The fourth man, the one who got away, we found his blood trail. Name's probably Diego Santos, also Cartel. You took out 3 experienced cartel soldiers in less than 5 minutes. David said nothing. What was there to say? Klein pulled out photos and spread them on the table. Crime scene images. The way you engaged them shows serious tactical knowledge. Controlled shots. You used your home's layout as an advantage. You stayed calm under pressure. This wasn't luck, Mr. Chen. This was skill. I did what I had to do to survive. And we respect that, Torres said. But here's the problem. The cartel doesn't see it that way. To them, you killed 3 of their people and embarrassed them. Word is already spreading. We've intercepted communications. They're not happy. David felt his stomach tighten. He'd known this was coming, but hearing it confirmed was different. What kind of communications? Torres and Klein exchanged a glance. Torres spoke carefully. There's a price on your head. $50,000. They're calling you El Fantasma, the ghost. They think you might be undercover DEA or some kind of government agent. They can't believe a random civilian took out their hit squad. I'm not random. I'm trained, we know that. They're figuring it out too, which makes this more complicated. Klein leaned back in his chair. We can offer you protection. Witness protection program. New identity, new location, new life. You'd be safe. David had been expecting this offer. He'd spent the last few hours thinking about it while answering questions. Jennifer and Amy flashed through his mind. His daughter's smile. The life he'd built here, quiet as it was. No, he said simply. Mr. Chen, these people don't give up. They'll come for you again. Then they'll come for me. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm not spending the rest of my life looking over my shoulder with a fake name in some random city. Torres rubbed his face. You're not thinking clearly. The adrenaline is still affecting your judgment. My judgment is fine. I've been in worse situations than this. I know what I'm doing. This isn't Afghanistan, Klein said, voice harder now. This is Texas. You can't just shoot your way through life here. There are laws, procedures, civilians everywhere. If the cartel sends another team, people could get caught in the crossfire. Your neighbors, your family. That hit harder than David wanted to admit. Amy. If they knew about Amy, if they went after her to get to him, he felt cold anger building in his chest. So what do you suggest? Torres pulled out another folder. We work together. You help us, we help you. You clearly know tactics, weapons, how these operations work. You've seen their methods firsthand now. Help us build cases against them. In return, we provide security, keep eyes on your family, make sure they're protected. You want me to be an informant? We want you to be a consultant. Use your skills to help us shut down their operations in this region. You've already hurt them badly. Let's finish the job. David thought about this. It made sense from their perspective. Use him as an asset, but it also painted an even bigger target on his back. Then again, that target was already there. The cartel thought he was either incredibly lucky or incredibly dangerous. Either way, they'd marked him. What happened to Robert Martinez? David asked. My neighbor, the guy they were actually looking for. He's in federal custody now. We moved him and his family last night. They're safe. Because I killed the men sent to murder him. Yes, Torres admitted. You saved his life and probably his family's lives. That counts for something. David stood up and walked to the small window in the interrogation room. Dawn was breaking outside. He'd been up all night. His home was still a crime scene. His peaceful retirement was destroyed. And now federal agents were asking him to go even deeper into danger. But the alternative was running, hiding, living in fear. That wasn't who he was. I'll help you, he said, turning back to face them. But on conditions. My daughter and ex-wife get protection, real protection, not just occasional drive-bys. If the cartel even looks at them wrong, you move them somewhere safe immediately. Second condition, I'm not hiding. I stay in my home, live my life, but I do it smart. You give me intel on threats, I'll handle security. Third, when this is done, when we've hurt them enough that they decide I'm not worth it anymore, you make it known. Spread the word that I'm off limits, that coming after me costs more than it's worth. Torres and Klein looked at each other again, having a silent conversation. Finally, Torres nodded. We can work with that, but you need to understand, this isn't going to be quick. Building cases against cartel leadership takes time. Months, maybe years, and I've got time, and you need to be smart. No cowboy stuff. You see a threat, you call us first. David almost smiled at that. Sure, I'll call you first. They spent another hour working out details. Protection details for Jennifer and Amy in San Antonio. A secure phone line David could use to contact the agents directly. A cover story for why federal agents would be consulting with him. Security upgrades for his home, paid for by federal budget. When they finally let him leave, the sun was fully up. Sheriff Williams drove him back to his house. The crime scene tape was still up, but most of the investigators had left. Hell of a night, Williams said as they pulled up. Yeah. You sure about staying here? I heard the feds offer you witness protection. I'm sure. This is my home. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't figured out which yet. David got out of the car and looked at his house. Bullet holes in the siding. Blood stains on the porch. Yellow crime scene tape flapping in the morning breeze. Maybe both, he said. Williams drove away and David walked into his house. It felt different now. Violated, but still his. He spent the day cleaning, patching holes, trying to make it feel like home again. His phone rang constantly. Jennifer called, terrified after federal agents showed up at her door. He spent an hour calming her down, explaining what happened, promising Amy would be safe. His daughter got on the phone. Dad, are you okay? Mom says bad people came to your house. I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything's fine. Some confused people came to the wrong house, but they're gone now. Were you scared? David thought about that. A little. But I remembered my training and I stayed safe. Like a superhero? Despite everything, he smiled. Not a superhero. Just your dad. That night, David sat on his porch with a cup of coffee watching the sunset. Somewhere out there, the cartel was planning their next move. Somewhere, dangerous men were angry and wanting revenge, but he was ready. And this time, he wasn't alone. 6 months changed everything. David sat in the same federal building in San Antonio where he'd spent countless hours over the past half year. Today felt different, though. Agent Torres walked in with a folder and actually smiled, which was rare for him. We got them, Torres said, dropping the folder on the table. The whole cell, 14 arrests across 3 states. Federal prosecutors are calling it one of the biggest Gulf cartel busts in Texas history. David opened the folder and scanned the documents. Names, photos, charges. Money laundering, drug trafficking, murder conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming, and a lot of it had come from the intel he'd helped provide. After that night in his home, David had become something unexpected. Not quite an agent, not quite an informant. Something in between. He'd used his tactical knowledge to help identify cartel safe houses, analyze their operational patterns, predict their movements. His military experience gave him insights the federal agents didn't have. Diego Santos, David said, pointing to one photo. The guy who got away from my house. Arrested 2 weeks ago in Houston. He's cooperating now, giving us everything. Turns out getting shot and watching his whole team die made him reconsider his career choices. And the leadership? Torres flipped to another page. Ramon Salazar. He's the one who ordered the hit on Robert Martinez. Also ordered the hit on you after you fought back. He's looking at life in prison without parole. His whole operation is dismantled. David leaned back in his chair. 6 months of work. 6 months of looking over his shoulder, of security details following his family, of sleeping light and keeping weapons close. But it had worked. What about the price on my head? That's the interesting part. Torres pulled out another document. We've intercepted new communications. The cartel leadership, what's left of them, made a decision. You're too expensive. 3 dead soldiers, 1 cooperating witness, 14 arrests. Multiple operations shut down, all because they hit the wrong house and ran into you. They're calling you a bad luck target. Word on the street is you're off limits now. David felt something release in his chest that had been tight for months. They're backing off? More than that. They're actively telling people to leave you alone. You've become a cautionary tale. The veteran who cost them millions of dollars and dozens of people. Nobody wants to be the next team sent after you. So it's over? Torres hesitated. The immediate threat is over. The Gulf cartel won't be coming for you. But you made a name for yourself in a world where names matter. Some people see you as dangerous. Others see you as a challenge. You need to stay smart. I've been smart for 6 months. I can keep being smart. Fair enough. Torres stood and offered his hand. You did good work, Chen. Really good. If you ever want a job with the Bureau, call me. David shook his hand but smiled. I'm done with that life. I just want to go back to being boring. Something tells me boring doesn't suit you. After the meeting, David drove back to Laredo. His house looked different now. The bullet holes were patched and painted over. New security cameras covered every angle. Reinforced doors and windows. It looked like a normal house, but it was quietly fortified. Just in case. Jennifer was waiting on his porch when he arrived. That was unexpected. Hey, he said, getting out of his truck. Everything okay? Is Amy all right? Amy's fine. She's at school. I wanted to talk to you alone. They sat on the porch, the same porch where he'd sat that night 6 months ago, not knowing his life was about to explode into violence. The federal agents came by yesterday, Jennifer said. Told me the threat was over, that we don't need the security detail anymore. Yeah, they just confirmed it with me, too. It's really over. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. When they first told me what happened that night, I thought I'd lost you. I thought those men had killed you. Then I found out you killed them instead, and I didn't know how to feel about that. I did what I had to do. I know. That's what scares me. You're so good at that life, David. The dangerous life. The tactical life. Part of me wonders if you miss it. David thought about that honestly. Sometimes I miss the clarity of it. In combat, things are simple. Threat or not threat. Mission or no mission. But I don't miss the cost. I don't miss being away from Amy. I don't miss the nightmares. Do you still get them? The nightmares? Not as much. Actually, that night 6 months ago, I thought it would make them worse. But it didn't. Maybe because I was defending my home instead of attacking someone else's. Maybe because I had no choice. I don't know. Jennifer reached over and squeezed his hand. It was the first real physical affection between them in over a year. Amy wants to see you more. Now that it's safe again, she's been asking when she can come visit. Anytime. This weekend if she wants. She wants to hear the story. The real story. She knows something big happened and she knows you protected people. She thinks you're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the right training. That's exactly what makes you a hero. David, you don't see it, but other people do. After Jennifer left, David spent the afternoon working in his garage. He'd finally finished the coffee table he'd been building. 6 months ago, he'd left it half done when everything went crazy. Now he could sand it, stain it, make it perfect. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Chen? This is Detective Lisa Park from the Laredo Police. Sorry to bother you. No problem. What can I do for you? We've got a situation. Home invasion 2 nights ago, elderly couple. The husband is a Marine veteran. Killed one of the intruders, but he's pretty shaken up. Doesn't know how to process what happened. Sheriff Williams suggested I call you. Thought maybe you could talk to him veteran to veteran. David felt a strange sense of purpose wash over him. Yeah, I can do that. When? Today, if possible. He's at his daughter's house right now. I'll text you the address. An hour later, David sat across from Frank Morrison, a 72-year-old former Marine who looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hands shook slightly as he held a cup of coffee. They told me you went through something similar, Frank said quietly. A few months back, 4 men broke into my place. Wrong house situation? Did you feel like this after? Like everything's different now? Yeah, I did. Still do sometimes. I keep seeing his face, the man I shot. He was young, maybe 25. And I know he was there to hurt me and my wife. I know I had no choice, but I keep seeing him fall. David understood that feeling more than he wanted to admit. That doesn't go away completely, but it gets easier. You did what you had to do to protect your wife. That matters. That means something. You sleep okay now? Most nights. Some nights are harder, but I've got people I can talk to. The VA has counselors who understand. It helps. They talked for another hour. David shared what he'd learned about processing the trauma, about separating necessary action from unnecessary guilt, about living with what you've done when you had no other choice. When he left, Frank's daughter walked him to his truck. Thank you, she said. He hasn't talked to anyone about it. Not really, but he talked to you. He'll be okay. It takes time, but he'll be okay. Driving home, David realized something had shifted. For 6 months, he'd been looking backward, dealing with consequences, trying to get back to normal. But maybe normal wasn't the goal anymore. Maybe what happened that night had changed him into something different. Something useful. That evening he called Agent Torres. Chen, what's up? Everything all right? Everything's fine. I've been thinking about what you said. About doing good work, yeah? I'm not interested in joining the Bureau. But I am interested in helping veterans. Guys like me who've come home and are trying to figure out civilian life. Maybe doing security consulting but also being available when someone needs to talk to someone who understands. Torres was quiet for a moment. That's a good idea. Really good. You'd be helping a lot of people. That's the plan. After he hung up, David sat on his porch watching the sunset. The same sunset he'd watched 1,000 times, but it looked different now. Everything looked different. His phone buzzed with a text from Amy. Dad, can we have a camp out in your backyard this weekend? Mom says it's safe now, please. He smiled and typed back. Absolutely. I'll set up the tent. 6 months ago, armed men had broken into his home planning violence and death. They'd chosen the wrong house and met someone who refused to be a victim. That night had changed everything. Had torn apart his peaceful retirement and thrown him back into danger. But somehow, through all of it, David had found something he didn't know he was looking for. Purpose. Not the mission-driven purpose of military life, but something quieter and deeper. The purpose of being someone others could count on. Someone who'd faced darkness and come through it, and could help others do the same. The cartel had made a mistake that night. They'd hit the wrong house, but in a strange way. That mistake had helped David find the right path forward. He looked at his home, battle-scarred but still standing, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace.